The moment she stomped toward me, her heels clicking like a warning siren, I knew trouble had arrived. "People like you shouldn't sit in first class," she snapped. Her nose wrinkled as if I'd personally offended the universe. I didn't answer. My hand stayed casually on the armrest, hiding the badge under my jacket. Her glare turned sharper when she noticed my calm. "Excuse me? Who do you think you are?" she hissed. Around us, passengers whispered, some curious, some scared of her fury. She waved a phone like it could summon backup. "I'm calling the airline. You don't belong here." I leaned back, smiling faintly, letting the tension simmer. "Go ahead," I said quietly. "Make sure you get it on record." She gasped like I'd insulted her personally and started shouting at the flight attendants. "This man has no right to sit here. I demand he be removed." Her voice carried over the cabin, turning heads. That's when I felt the tiny vibration in my coat pocket, the secure signal from headquarters. I wasn't just a passenger. I was the undercover air marshal, the one they trained to stop threats mid-air. And she had no idea. As she fumed, pulling out a printed authority notice she claimed gave her power, I casually reached into my pocket and started recording her on my concealed camera. Every entitled word, every absurd threat, every fake claim of authority, it was all going straight into evidence. Her face twisted in disbelief when I didn't flinch. You can't," she sputtered. I leaned closer, whispering softly so only she could hear. "Funny thing, I don't answer to passengers like you." Her anger hit the boiling point, and suddenly she grabbed a flight attendant's arm to insist they remove me. That was her mistake. I'd trained for this. Calmly, I tapped my earpiece, signaling my team to prepare for intervention if needed. And then, with one smooth motion, I stood, revealing my badge for the first time. Gasps filled the cabin. Her smug confidence crumbled. The woman who thought she could intimidate everyone with fake rules was about to learn what real authority looked like. She froze, eyes wide, staring at the shiny badge I held out like a mirror reflecting her ridiculousness. You're an air marshal?" she stammered, her voice cracking. Passengers were now watching, some smirking, some pulling out their phones, sensing the unfolding drama. "I am," I said firmly, keeping my voice low but steady. "And you just tried to intimidate a federal officer." Her fake bravado started to crumble, but she wasn't done yet. I didn't know," she stammered, backing away, clutching her papers like they were a shield. I was protecting the cabin. "Safety," I raised an eyebrow. "By threatening a passenger and grabbing a crew member?" My tone was calm, but every word landed like a hammer. The crew, now fully aware, stood behind me, visibly relieved someone finally had control. Her panic grew and she fumbled for her phone. "I'm calling." "The cops," she squeaked. That was her second mistake. I silently activated my hidden recorder, catching every word. Not only was she lying, but she was also escalating the situation on a plane. Then came the twist. One of the passengers, an older man with a quiet confidence, spoke up. "She's done this before," he said, voice steady. "Tried to kick my daughter off a flight last year. Posted videos online even." Everyone's attention shifted to him. Karen's face went pale. Her fake courage vanished. I leaned closer to her, still calm. "You're going to regret this," I whispered. "Not because of me, but because truth always catches up." Her fake threats had no power here. Just as she tried to storm toward the cockpit, the chief flight attendant blocked her, sternly saying, "Ma'am, you need to sit down, or we'll have to involve law enforcement on landing." Karen's eyes darted around the cabin, realizing for the first time that her authority was completely meaningless, and then, almost quietly, I pressed record on my hidden cam and murmured under my breath, "Let's see how you handle being exposed in front of everyone." Her panic, her entitlement, and her lies were about to be caught on tape, airborne evidence that no one could ignore. The tension was electric. Every passenger felt it. They were about to witness the collapse of someone who thought she could control the world with a fake notice and loud voice, and it was only getting started. Karen sank into the seat beside her, muttering under her breath, her hands trembling as if she'd just realized the walls she built around her power were imaginary. The cabin was quiet now, but the tension simmered like a storm ready to break. I stayed seated, calm, letting her panic do the work for me. Then came the twist no one expected. A teenage girl across the aisle raised her hand, holding up her phone. "Excuse me." I recorded everything she did when she tried to kick my mom off last summer, she said, her voice steady. The video started playing on her screen. Karen screaming, shoving, and threatening people, her entitled face full of rage. Gasps echoed. The passengers leaned in, unable to look away. Karen's face turned red, then white, then red again. That's old. You can't show that, she screamed, trying to grab the phone, but a quick swipe from the girl saved the footage from being deleted. The cabin erupted in murmurs, passengers whispering, some laughing at her ridiculousness. Her third mistake was showing her desperation. She lunged toward the aisle, trying to reach the flight attendant. I stood slowly, my badge tucked back into my jacket. Ma'am, sit down. Calm yourself. You're only making things worse, I said. My tone was calm, but there was an edge that didn't invite argument. She paused, realizing everyone was watching. That's when she tried her last card, fake authority. I'm the HOA president. I interrupted, holding up my hand. No, you're a passenger on my flight threatening people. HOA doesn't give you federal immunity, and threatening people in the air is a federal crime. Her jaw dropped. The words hung in the air like a guillotine waiting to fall. But the real twist was yet to come. A man in a suit near the back leaned forward, clearing his throat. She also tried to kick me out of my home last year. I filed a complaint. HO finds fake notices. She's been doing this for years. Passengers whispered, eyes widening. Karen's web of lies was unraveling faster than she could process. I smirked quietly to myself. She thought this was just another power play, but she had no idea she had just stepped into a storm she couldn't survive. Every eye was on her, every phone recording, every word she spoke adding to the evidence that would ruin her day, and maybe her entire little kingdom of fake authority. Karen's breathing became shallow, and her hands twisted nervously in her lap. She was used to controlling people with intimidation, fake rules, and loud voices. But here she had no control at all. The passengers' eyes bored into her, phones quietly recording every twitch of panic. She tried one last desperate tactic. You can't do this. I have connections. People will listen to me. Her voice cracked as she glanced nervously at the cockpit. But even the pilot, sitting calm and professional, didn't flinch. Her connections were meaningless up here. That's when I decided to turn up the pressure. I leaned toward her, voice low but clear. Funny thing, I know exactly who to call, and it won't end well for you. Her eyes widened, realizing I wasn't bluffing. She thought she could intimidate anyone, but she'd just met someone trained to handle threats calmly and decisively. A twist hit her even harder when another passenger, a middle-aged woman with a kind but firm presence, spoke up. She tried to take over my HOA board meeting last year. We have records, emails, even audio. She's been harassing everyone. Murmurs spread through the cabin. Karen's face paled as the web of her past arrogance was suddenly illuminated. Her hands shook as she tried to regain composure, whispering frantically into her phone. But the girl with last year's video piped up again, holding her phone high. And this isn't the first time. You can't hide this. The cabin felt like it was closing in around Karen. Every whisper, every glance, every phone recording was a wall she couldn't climb over. She opened her mouth to argue again, but I cut her off, calm yet icy. Ma'am, this ends when you stop pretending you're above the law. Her fake confidence shattered entirely. The entitled woman who thought she could bully, manipulate, and fake authority on a plane was now powerless, completely exposed. And the final twist of this section? Just as she slumped, defeated, a small, almost hidden smile appeared on my face. She had no idea that the FAA and federal investigators were already on standby, notified by my team mid-flight. Her little tantrum was about to cost her far more than embarrassment. It was about to hit her where it really counted. The plane touched down with a soft shudder and a roll that felt like the last beat before a storm release. People stayed seated, phones still out, eyes on Karen as if she might vanish into thin air. I kept my face neutral, but inside I was counting. Team on the ground, backup in place, evidence saved. The flight crew taxied to the gate like nothing had happened, but everyone knew this was far from over. As the door opened, 2 plainclothes agents from my unit stepped onto the jet bridge. They moved calm and sure, the way trained people do when a situation is tense but under control. One gave me a quick nod. I stood and spoke into my collar mic soft so only my team heard. We've got a non-compliant passenger. Pack up her papers. The words were small, but they carried weight. Karen's face went from fury to pale panic in one long breath. She clutched her purse like it was a lifeline. "You can't. This is a mistake. I have rights," she cried, voice high and thin. The older man with the HOA record stood up quietly and handed a manila folder to the nearest agent. Inside were receipts, emails, a trail of complaints, years of small cruelties made legal looking. The agent glanced through them and did not smile. Passengers moved aside politely as the agents approached. Cameras blinked like a jury. I stayed seated until the lead agent made the call to remove her. "Ma'am, you are coming with us for questioning," he said. Her eyes searched the cabin for support and found none. The entitlement that had fed her behavior had drained away. She rose, stumbling, and was gently but firmly led down the aisle. A chorus of quiet relief followed her exit. But as they reached the jet bridge, she turned and yelled, voice thin but sharp, "You'll regret this. I have connections, judges, cops. You don't know who you're messing with." The lead agent didn't answer. He just tightened his grip on the folder she fumbled with and walked her toward the ground crew waiting outside. That should have been the end. Instead, the first real twist hit like thunder. As Karen's shoes hit the tarmac, a woman in a crisp blazer and dark sunglasses stepped forward from the line of bystanders. She spoke into a recorder for a local news crew that had swarmed to the gate. "This woman has been intimidating families, falsifying notices, and ordering illegal towings," she said. "We've been fighting her for months." Cameras shifted and someone in the throng held up a sign with a web address that pointed to a community page full of complaints. Karen's face crumpled, but then quietly another voice, soft, almost too calm, cut through the noise. It was the man in the suit who'd said he'd been sued by her. He held up a small envelope and said, "She's not just a bully. She's been filing counterfeit liens. We have the bank records." The agents exchanged looks. New crimes. New evidence. Karen's protest turned into a thin, desperate whisper. And just when the cabin and the tarmac seemed to breathe a little easier, she dropped the final bomb. "You have no right," she screamed suddenly, eyes wild. "I have a temporary court order. I can seize property. My name is on records." The words tumbled out. Everyone froze. The manila folder slipped from an agent's hand and fluttered to the ground. Phones lifted higher. My jaw tightened. That claim could change everything if true. The lead agent stepped forward, voice steady. "Then show it to us, ma'am. Right now." Karen dug into her purse with shaking hands and pulled out a thick envelope stamped with official-looking seals. Her fingers trembled as she handed it over. For a moment, the world held its breath. The recorders clicked. The cameras rolled. I felt the old soldier's muscle memory in my chest. Watch for lies. Watch for paper that looks real. As the agents opened the envelope and skimmed the contents, I watched Karen's eyes, pale, frantic, trying to find any ally in the crowd. She looked at me once, and I met that look with a calm she could not crack. This was no longer just about a flight or an entitled woman getting her comeuppance. It was about a deeper game she'd been playing in neighborhoods and courtrooms. If those papers were real, if they were forged, then the stakes were higher than a single arrest. If they were real, then we had a new danger nobody expected. The lead agent's brow tightened. The envelope made a soft sound as pages shifted. He looked up slowly, and in that heartbeat the whole scene went silent again, waiting for the verdict that would tell us whether we'd killed a monster of ego or stumbled into something much worse. The lead agent flipped through the papers slowly, his face unreadable. Karen's eyes darted between him and the cameras, panic gnawing at her confidence. "See, you can't touch me. This is legal, I'm protected," she shrieked, voice shaking. The tarmac buzzed with whispers. Everyone leaned closer, sensing the suspense. I stepped forward, keeping my tone calm but sharp. "Ma'am, all of this will be verified. If it's forged, you're in far deeper trouble than you can imagine." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The first twist hit harder. The agent's eyes flicked to me. "Air Marshal, do you recognize these seals?" I crouched slightly, scanning the documents. My military and investigative training kicked in. The stamps looked official at first glance, but the fonts were slightly off, the embossing uneven. I exhaled quietly. "Fake," I said. She tried to scare everyone with counterfeit orders. Her panic spiked and she screamed, "That's impossible. These are real. You're lying." Passengers muttered, some pointing phones toward her, capturing every breakdown. The second twist hit. Not only had she lied on the plane, but she had been carrying forged legal papers to maintain her control outside flights. across neighborhoods, and even in HOA meetings. Then the third twist. The man in the suit from earlier stepped closer, holding up a small USB drive. We also found surveillance footage of her planting fake notices on multiple properties, he said calmly. This isn't just harassment. It's organized intimidation. Karen's face twisted from panic to rage, realizing the net had closed around her. The lead agent finally spoke, voice low and commanding. Ma'am, you're under investigation for impersonation, forgery, and harassment. Anything you say can and will be used against you. The words landed like hammers. Her last shred of authority vanished, leaving a hollow, frightened figure in the middle of the tarmac. I stood silently, arms folded, as passengers whispered and pointed. I caught the teenage girl's eye, the one with last year's video, and gave her a small nod. She smiled faintly. Evidence stacked, justice forming, and an entitled woman finally exposed for the fraud she was. But the final twist of this section wasn't over. As Karen was led away, she muttered under her breath a venomous promise. You think this is the end? You don't know who I really am and what I can still do. I caught that and didn't flinch. A warning, a threat, a challenge. It meant she had one more move left, a move we couldn't see coming. The crowd slowly dispersed, murmurs of relief mixed with curiosity about what would happen next. But in my chest I felt that old surge, the one that tells you the storm isn't finished until the last shadow is cleared. And Karen's shadow had one final trick hidden up her sleeve. Karen was escorted into a waiting black SUV, her hands cuffed, but her eyes still burned with calculated fury. This isn't over, she spat, voice low but venomous. I stayed back, watching, sensing that she had one last card, something dangerous and unexpected. As the SUV drove away, a sudden commotion erupted near the airport exit. A man in a sharp suit rushed toward the gate agents, waving papers frantically. Stop, you've got the wrong person. His voice was commanding, panicked. People turned, cameras pivoting to capture the new chaos. I stepped forward instinctively. Who are you? I asked, keeping my tone neutral, calm. The man's gaze darted around, landing finally on me. I'm her lawyer. She has a valid restraining order and injunction. A sharp laugh cut through the air. It was the older man, the HOA victim, holding up a binder of evidence. Valid? You call forged documents and planted notices valid? His voice carried authority. Karen's lawyer's face twisted, realizing the magnitude of what he had just walked into. The twist hit the crowd hard. Not only had Karen been exposed mid-flight, but she'd attempted to use legal threats as a smokescreen for months. The lawyer tried to argue, but the federal agent stepped in, firmly saying, Ma'am, and anyone representing her, all claims must be verified. Right now she's in custody, and any attempt to interfere is a federal offense. Karen, now in the back of the SUV, realized her game had completely collapsed. She pulled out her phone, fingers trembling. Call the judge. The papers. You don't understand. But the backup agent had already notified the court of the forgeries. Every move she tried to make was preempted, neutralized. Then came the final twist of this section. A text alert flashed on my phone. It was from the teen who had recorded last year's video. She's trying to contact another flight crew. Same story. Different plane. I felt a chill. Karen's reach wasn't just limited to one flight. Her obsession with control and intimidation extended far beyond what anyone imagined. I closed my phone and whispered to my team, calm but urgent, this isn't finished. She's desperate, and desperate people are dangerous. The agents nodded. The passengers were leaving, relieved but buzzing with curiosity. And somewhere in the city, Karen was plotting her next move, unaware that every step she took was now being tracked. Her empire of entitlement had been exposed, humiliated and dismantled, yet the threat lingered, a shadow that promised one last unpredictable confrontation, and I knew deep down the final act of this drama was coming, one that would leave everyone gasping. Days later, the news had gone viral. Videos of Karen's meltdown on the plane, combined with the evidence of her HOA schemes, were trending everywhere. Headlines screamed about entitlement, fake authority, and harassment. Passengers from that flight were being interviewed, their voices shaking but proud, telling the world how a single air marshal had stood up to her. But I wasn't celebrating. A feeling in my gut told me she wasn't finished. Then came the call. Federal investigators had tracked her online activity. She had been quietly setting up shell HOA groups, sending threatening letters to families and attempting to manipulate local officials. The network of fake power she'd built was larger than anyone realized. The twist hit even harder when a deputy called me privately. "Ma'am, she's attempting to file a temporary restraining order against you. Says you harassed her on the flight." I couldn't help but smirk. She had the audacity to try turning the law against the very person who had exposed her. Her arrogance had no limits. I leaned back in my chair, reviewing the footage and records we'd collected. Every fake notice, forged document, and harassment claim had been logged meticulously. It was enough to take her down legally, publicly, and permanently. But Karen was clever, and desperation made people dangerous. Then came the final twist. One of the parents from the flight, the one whose child Karen had intimidated, approached me with an idea. We could make a public record of everything. Videos, emails, HOA complaints, so she can never manipulate anyone again. My mind raced. Public exposure would destroy her reputation forever, but it had to be handled carefully. Legal, undeniable, and permanent. I agreed. Together we compiled the evidence into a single, irrefutable report. Every fake notice, every forged paper, every act of intimidation was there. The media, local authorities, and federal investigators were all notified. Karen's empire of fear was about to be fully dismantled. The day the press release hit, Karen tried one last stunt. She showed up at a community meeting, claiming innocence, waving forged documents. But it was too late. Cameras were rolling, reporters were present, and every family she had ever harassed was there to confront her. Her lies fell flat, her fake authority crumbled, and the public humiliation was complete. As I watched, a wave of relief and satisfaction washed over me. Families were safe. Entitlement had been exposed. But even in that moment, I couldn't shake the lesson Karen had reminded everyone. People who abuse power will try again. But with truth, courage, and careful planning, they can be stopped. And somewhere in the city, Karen's plans were in ruins, yet the whispers of her threats lingered. One final thought echoed in my mind. Justice isn't just about stopping the wrong, it's about making sure they can never rise again.